July marks a new year for laws in Idaho, and of course, new laws tend to lead to new lawsuits. But we've got you covered from bathrooms to ballots to Bundy. Idaho was one of the first states to allow women to vote. Last month, Idaho's GOP took that right away, at least for Republican women and the party's executive committee. Okay, so a tie is like kissing your sibling. Second is the first loser, and if you're not first, you're last, that kind of thing. But according to Boise cyclist Jorgensen, fourth is the worst, especially if it's by 1 second. See you in court. It was a common refrain during the past several legislative sessions. Anytime a controversial bill was passed and signed into law, whether it be about abortion, ballot initiatives, or pretty much anything having to do with transgender rights, there was a promise by those opposed to take down the new law with a lawsuit. It was the same with Idaho's bathroom bill, Senate Bill 1100, the one which required students at Idaho's public schools to use the bathroom or locker room that matches their assigned gender at birth, rather than the gender which they align with now. We knew there was bound to be litigation. Well, 10 days after the law went into effect, we now have a lawsuit against it because we now have someone who might be harmed by it. Here's Joe Paris.
When the calendar shifted to July, Idaho laws updated to reflect newly passed legislation by the Idaho legislature. That includes laws that change how bathrooms are used in Idaho public schools. Senate Bill 1100, known as the bathroom bill, says all Idaho public schools are now required to have bathrooms separated based on the sex a person was assigned at birth, or they can face possible fines. And that law is now being challenged in federal court. A coalition of legal advocates has filed a suit on behalf of a 7th grade transgender student in Boise. The suit challenges the legality of the bathroom law on several fronts and seeks a preliminary injunction to get the law at least paused before the fall semester begins. Plaintiff A, listed as Rebecca Rowe, a pseudonym, is a 12-year-old in the Boise School District. The suit details her gender identity transition from male to female, saying, quote, "Although Rebecca is now thriving as a transgender student, her mental health suffered in the past before she came to understand her gender identity better and received the support that she needed." LGBTQ advocates maintain there are no Idaho cases of issues arising because of a transgender student using their preferred restroom. Rowe's specific bathroom routine as a trans woman is outlined as simple and not creating problems in the lawsuit. The suit identifies Title IX violations, as well as violations under the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. I reached out to the Idaho Attorney General's office for their reaction to the suit. A spokesperson tells me, quote, "While we don't comment on pending litigation, our office is always prepared to vigorously defend the constitutionality of statutes duly passed by the legislature." Supporters of the bathroom bill highlight the fact that SB 1100 never uses the phrase transgender inside the law. Students that do not wish to use a restroom that match their biological sex are supposed to be given other accommodations by the school, like using a private restroom in an administrative area. Advocates of the law say that they believe that provision is a middle ground to allow any student to use a restroom in private. However, the lawsuit points out an issue with the solution, saying it could amount to forced outing of transgender students, something very sensitive. They say that these laws will, quote, "subject these youth to an increase of risk of harassment and even bodily harm in violation of their basic right to privacy."
So the lawsuit lays out the idea that Senate Bill 1100 is a solution in search of a problem. We did hear from Idaho lawmakers during the legislative session that said that this topic was something that needed to be addressed before there were issues. And Brian, we heard calls mostly from Democrats during the legislative session saying that this bathroom bill is illegal and there's no way it'll stand up. Well, we'll find out now because it's now in the hands of a courtroom.
Now, to be fair, we also heard legislators say that there were litter boxes being used in some school districts, which is not true. But I want to go back to what Rebecca Rowe's claim is, that she has been using this bathroom in a public school as a girl with having no problems whatsoever. But now with this law in effect, well, now there potentially could be problems, right? So nothing has happened so far.
Right, and that's kind of the conversation that was at the legislature this past year, Brian, where you heard from some lawmakers that said, okay, maybe there hasn't been any problems, but, you know, we don't want there to be problems, so we better set up this law right now. So that's kind of where that comes from. But critics of that, train of thought say, why are you passing bills that have nothing to do with reality? You can come up with bills or ideas for anything. So two very different sides. Again, though, it'll now be in the hands of the judicial system.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. All right, so from bathrooms to ballots, what's in a name matters a lot when it comes to lawsuits, at least according to the people who want to open Idaho's primaries. Today, Idahoans for Open Primaries and Reclaim Idaho are officially challenging what Idaho's Attorney General named their ballot titles. It's the AG's job to name such things, and they claim the titles given to them misrepresent what the initiatives actually are, saying they are misleading and full of falsehoods. Well, at the center of all this is the idea to open up the primary election process in Idaho, which has been closed by Republicans for Republicans since 2012, and to give voters a chance at a ranked choice election, regardless of affiliation. Raul Labrador's office says the initiative violates Idaho code by trying to change two things instead of just one. Supporters of the initiative say they're just changing two things under one subject, and that would be elections. The lawsuit could add another layer of difficulty, by the way, to whether supporters of this initiative can get enough signatures to get it on the ballot in 2024, since the gathering of signatures is now on hold with the official lawsuit. Last month, Idaho's GOP decided to hold their summer meeting in the middle of the Idaho wilderness. Challis, Idaho, not quite the middle of nowhere, but not easily accessible for many of the party. And while they were there, members of the GOP decided also to do a few things, including removing the voting rights of a few members of the executive committee. The Idaho Young Republicans, the College Republicans, and the Idaho Federation of Republican Women, which prompted this text message from Rhonda. You need to do a segment on the 208 about the Idaho Republican Women Committee being upset about having their vote removed from the Idaho Republican Executive Council. Well, Rhonda, we kind of already talked about this a little bit. Fresh from that summer meeting, we sat down with former Idaho Republican Chairman Tom Luna, who said this about the removing of voting rights of Republican women.
We know that the workers of our party are the Republican women, and we want the base of women across Idaho to grow when it comes to Republicans.
Okay, so they're the workers of the party. Well, what does that mean? Well, the Idaho Federation of Republican Women told us today, in 2 years, it means 43,000 volunteer hours. That comes out to $1.3 million worth of labor. So their reward for that? Getting their opinion removed from the executive committee. Here's what else they had to say to Andrew Bartline.
For decades, the GOP's been Idaho's dominant political party, led today by the elected leader of the populace, Governor Brad Little.
I remember all the years when we didn't have Republican governors in this state. Those are the kind of individuals that we will support and try to get elected.
Tracy Wasden leads the Idaho Federation of Republican Women.
Yes, yes.
Under the big tent, she's gotten a big voice.
For over 50 years.
Till now, where she's turned mute.
For us to lose that vote on the board, not right. That should not happen. Women from across this state should not be happy with that.
At the GOP summer meeting, the party voted to take away executive committee voting rights from the Young Republicans, College Republicans, and the Federation of Republican Women.
And there are many people that are coming in from out of state trying to tell us that we're not Republican enough. So many of these people have not even been here 5 years, and they're into our politics and telling us how to run things. It is crazy.
So Republican women elected you to represent them.
Exactly.
And the Idaho GOP says we don't need to hear your voice on this committee.
Yes. When there are less votes, there is more control by fewer people. And so they did not want my voice and my vote.
And it took a 137 to 79 vote to take it all away.
And to see those numbers. Those are not good numbers. I know that. And that was not something I want to go through again.
It seems like a small vote. When Chairman Moon was elected, there was like 400 or something votes. Why is that pool so much smaller?
Well, first of all, that was up in Challis, Idaho. Not an easy place to get. That was made like that by design. Less people, more powerful votes on one side.
Have you started to pick up on the theme here yet?
Less votes, more power.
But how do you find a young woman in the state of Idaho and say, the GOP is the party for you? How do you make that sales pitch?
That is difficult in some circumstances because of what has happened. But I will still do that. There are good young women around, and I will continue to work for those women to come and join us.
Tracy Wasden says she is not leaving the party. Rather, she continues to work to lead the party than leave the party. She says the support for this vote came through a pamphlet that was given to all people who were voting at that time. She says it held half-truths, and it was handed out just before the voting began. And support for this vote, Brian, the argument would be that the elections for these positions are not done by the GOP at large. These are private organizations that have votes on it. So that's the common denominator why they got singled out. But she thinks that's maybe appealing to a more noble motive. She really does believe that it's a situation of you're a rhino, you're not Republican enough, and they nailed these three organizations down, found a common denominator, found a reason for it.
And Tracy Wasden's name might seem familiar to a lot of people because her husband was the former Attorney General for decades here in the state of Idaho. Just recently was replaced by Raul Labrador in the primary.
Yeah, she even joked about that. I said, "Do you think this is personal to you at all?" She goes, "Well, they may not like my name." So she had a sense of humor about it a little bit.
A little bit. All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Bundy is back. Well, not in court, because he failed to show up again. But Bundy is back, making headlines because of it, and sending letters to judges. Hey, you want to send us a letter? Like a little one, a small one, that you can fit in your text machine there? Maybe you have some questions, comments about today's show. Text the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Don't forget to include your name and the hashtag #the208. That way we know they're meant for us, we know who they're from, and we can share them at the end of the show. Another court date, another no-show by the defendants Ammon Bundy and Diego Rodriguez. Today was day one of their scheduled trial, the penalty phase, since a judge has already declared a default judgment in favor of St. Luke's, the hospital suing the anti-government activist Bundy and his associate Rodriguez for $7.5 million for defamation, invasion of privacy, infliction of emotional distress, and trespassing. The default judgment was issued because Bundy and Rodriguez have refused to participate in this lawsuit in any way. Bundy telling us weeks ago doing so would justify what he calls an unjust proceeding. So today, during jury selection, Ada County District Judge Nancy Baskin told potential jurors, this case is somewhat unusual, as the defendants have elected not to participate. True. Not participating does not mean Bundy would not have something to say about it, though. He wrote a letter to Judge Baskin today in which he pleaded with her to stop this case from going any further. And in the last of the 10-paragraph letter, Bundy wrote, "Please do not give rich and powerful people false justification to destroy my life. Please do not sanction a war that may end in innocent blood and require others to bring justice upon those who are responsible for shedding it." Wow. Bundy believes, I guess, damages awarded to St. Luke's would sanction a war which could end in bloodshed, something which was avoided, by the way, with Bundy in Nevada in 2014, but was not avoided with the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge takeover in 2016. The week-long trial will go on without Bundy and Rodriguez, with opening statements expected as early as tomorrow.
Well, talk of the town this week, besides just the heat, the fact that we will likely see the northern lights, or it's possible anyway, that we could see the northern lights as far south as Boise. Of course, the further north you can go to view the northern lights, the better off you will be. So July 12th and 13th is when the aurora borealis will reach its peak this week. Really the 13th on Thursday, but still the night of Wednesday the 12th, you might have some good viewing as well. You need to get away from light pollution. The later it can be into the evening, of course, the darker it will be, the better off you'll be. So 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. your best time to view. And of course, like I said, further north, better viewing. And we will have nice clear skies, so weather, clouds should not interfere with any of your amazing photos of the aurora borealis, which I hope you share with us on our Idaho Weather Watchers page. Our skies should look just like this all week long. Right now in Boise, we're sitting at 92 degrees, so not nearly as scorching as we were yesterday, but still pretty toasty. 92, by the way, is our typical daytime high for this point in July, though I do think we'll tack on a little bit more as far as heat goes. And officially so far, we have reached 94 degrees in Boise today, 97 in Ontario. In the mountains, once again in the 80s and low 90s out in the Magic Valley. So it's been a pretty hot Monday, not as hot as our triple-digit Sunday in the Treasure Valley yesterday. We have a cool front that is on the way. It'll move through tonight. I hate to even call it a cool front. It really won't do a whole lot to our temperatures except drop them a couple of degrees by tomorrow. We have some stray thunderstorms that are firing off ahead of this cool front. We will likely continue to see some mountain thunderstorms off and on through the evening hours. All of that, though, dies down tomorrow as we have drier air that will work its way in behind that front. And we have some wind that has picked up as well, where you see these pockets of blue and especially the yellow and the reds here. We have some gusty winds and we'll likely keep breezy to gusty winds in play for the next couple of days. A refreshing northwesterly wind, and hey, we'll take that when it's mid-90s. Thursday will be our coolest day of the week, down to 93 degrees. That sounds balmy considering what's coming our way this weekend. Triple digits return on Saturday and we stay scorching through early next week.
Yeah, fourth is like the worst place in cycling. I mean, it just doesn't, it's not good for anything, you know? It's like not a podium, you're up there, but you didn't really do anything, so.
I love that quote. Fourth is the worst, says Idaho's best pro cyclist. I love it. And we've shared that sentiment a couple of times from Boise's Matteo Jorgensen. The first time was last summer when he was reflecting on his performance in his first Tour de France, in which he ended up 21st out of 176 riders who started the 3-week race, with 2 fourth-place stage finishes, by the way. He told us then he felt inspired for what's ahead. And coming off his self-titled best spring ever this past spring, he had high hopes for his performance in his second race around the French countryside. Okay, so the first few stages, Matteo wasn't exactly making much of a mark, with finishes from 159th to 22nd to 132nd in stage 8. Then came stage 9, Sunday, yesterday, the 182-kilometer Puy de Dôme stage, the first time the Tour has taken to this mountaintop finish since 1988. Matteo would choose this climb to make his move.
Huge advantage for the breakaway.
The push for a potential podium began with about 50 kilometers to go.
Matteo Jorgensen now has made his move. Big move off the front by the rider from Boise, Idaho, on the Spanish Movistar squad. This is a fantastic move by Matteo. Must have the good legs today.
And Matteo did have the good legs going, at least for a little while.
I think he has to go early to get a little bit of a time gap, but it's a brave move.
Matteo told Cycling News he knew he needed a big lead before reaching the climb up the Puy de Dôme. It wasn't really in the plan to go in the break, he said, but I found myself there. And then you kind of have to look around and make a plan on the fly.
Matteo Jorgensen could be trying to steal the stage right now.
And the 24-year-old would hold that lead.
And this is Jorgensen riding like an inspired man today.
For the next 49.5 kilometers.
The way Matteo's riding, I don't think they're going to be able to get back across to Matteo Jorgensen. He does look great.
Because, of course, came the curse of the overconfident announcer.
And Michael Wood's about to catch everybody except Matteo Jorgensen.
Then, as Matteo was just about a clip from his first stage win in his second Tour de France,
he is now 1.1 kilometers from the finishing line. Surely he won't be destroyed.
Well, surely you can see the foreshadowing happening here. And surely you can see Michael Woods from Canada right back there. We can. And don't call me Shirley.
How much is left? Does he know just how close Woods is right behind him there?
Well, no, because without any fans allowed along the narrow road, Mateo had no idea.
And now look at this as he comes up on his back.
After the race, he explained it like this. As we climbed the mountain, my radio stopped working, so the only time gaps I got were from the motorbike. He was telling me a minute, then 40 seconds, and then 35 seconds. That was the last one I got with 1 kilometer to go. So with about a third of a mile to go, about the distance from Front Street to the Capitol steps, if it were a crushing uphill climb.
Still a chance for Mateo, 500 meters to go.
What an absolute unbelievable ride he's going. Mateo, can he lift it? I don't think he can.
Mateo said, I started to feel empty. And then before I knew it, Mike was there and passing me. It was a surprise, but there was absolutely nothing I could do. Still, there was a first-time podium celebration in Mateo's sights. However, 2 more riders and heartbreak would catch Mateo once again, mere feet from the gravel finish.
And finally, just a little bit, half a kilometer too far for Mateo Jorgensen. I think he's going to be denied even a podium there on the line by Mohoric. He is 4th place, but what a ride by Jorgensen.
Man, 4th by 1 second. 4th for the 3rd time in the Tour de France, in his 2nd Tour de France, by the way. Mateo told Cycling News as he was getting on the Movistar team bus, I'm proud of what I did. At the end of the day, it didn't pay off, but it will one day. Well, today is a rest day for riders, much deserved after that 14% climb from yesterday. That was a straight uphill climb. So maybe that one day will pay off for Mateo in the Tour's 12 remaining stages. Let's get right to your comments today on this Monday. This one, didn't get a name with this one, but excellent reporting on the bathroom bill. Thank you for not giving lip service to hate speech by calling it the opposing viewpoint. I understand the frustration on both sides of the bathroom issue. I think it's time for legislature to consider removing all general bathrooms in the school and replace them with gender-neutral bathrooms that are private. This should be a good solution, but a pricey one, says Scott. But that actually would be decided at the local level. Not sure lawmakers would get into that, although who knows, they do dip their toe in other things that should be decided at the local level. Once again, the Idaho taxpayers will foot the bill to defend an unconstitutional and unnecessary law, according to the transgender bathroom bill. Jack in Boise sending that. Mrs. Wasden may not want to leave the GOP, but it seems they have no problem leaving her by taking the Federation of Women Voters out of the executive committee on the Republican Party. How can a political party win elections when their leaders they alienate the young, the women, minorities, and others within their own party, asks Steve. And this one says, doesn't matter how long you live here, you still get a vote, right? We'll see you tomorrow.